Cut his way down the field. He jacks it to Brown. Janet chasing. Too far. Brown trying to throw this ball and he doesn't.
Coming up to this semi-final, and Ryan Lee sprinting into the end zone.
And she opens up a huge backhand arcing across the field, and that's a break for Colombia.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, everybody in between and all over the world, it is my pleasure, my privilege to welcome you here to the University of Nottingham Sports Campus for the World Under-24 Ultimate Championships. We are in the Open Division. We are watching the quarterfinals. That's right, it is the business end of the tournament. I'm Lorca Murray and I'm joined by Gigi to see Australia take on the US of A. Gigi, what do we have in store for the people at home?
I am expecting a feisty matchup. We know historically that the US will bring absolutely everything to every tournament in every division, and they are certainly a stalwart in ultimate frisbee, but Australia have been feisty themselves. I know that we were standing on the sideline of them playing against Belgium Open yesterday. There was a universe point finish in favor of Belgium, but Australia wanting to come into these quarterfinals with a win against a huge force. John O'Keefe, the number 28 for Australia, having contributed so much to this team. 3 goals and 18 assists so far. He's probably going to be one of the bigger players that the US is going to target.
And you can talk to us a little bit about that approach that they have, Gigi. We know that the US don't have a huge amount of time together, so they have to rely on an awful lot of the talent, the kind of talent like Benjamin Dameron, who has been putting up assists and goals all over the stat sheet as well. The Americans are just loaded with ability, and he is one of the real points of their spear as they look to once again skewer the rest of the world. Remember, they are undefeated when it comes to winning championships at this event. No one has ever been able to stop the American Empire. So, what will happen this year? We have a quick look. All 4 of these games will be brought to you by Ulti World. United States versus Australia is obviously happening right now. We have got Italy and Japan, Belgium and Great Britain happening in the next time slot at 5 o'clock, and Canada, Germany happening over on field 2. So a veritable buffet of open division action. Young stars of the future coming together to do battle. And do battle is what they will really do. Like you said, American teams like to go with that match offense. They like to go match to match. But we've seen the Australians are more than happy to get into a bit of a physical battle themselves.
Yeah, they're certainly known as an extremely athletic nation. We have a look at our starting 7s for both sides. Some big names coming out here.
And what you've got to really wonder is the matchup assignments that the Americans will be putting onto the likes of John O'Keefe, James French, Kobe Ryan, Callum Faulkner. They have got plenty of talent and ability themselves, but who are they going to be trying to shut down? It's all here to see as that imperious power is going to look to continue their march to the final and another gold medal. But it doesn't matter the situation. The Australians always manage to make the serious situation seem fun, and they're out for enjoyment and a little bit of blood.
Yeah, so I'm wondering whether Australia might, I wouldn't even say have the edge. They're starting out on defense, and in terms of gusto and attitude bringing into it, often starting out on defense can be the game changer. Is the thing that defense I always find is the one element of the game that you can come out really bolstering and boosting through. You're wanting to shut down such a dominant force such as the US. As we have a quick look at the pools, there were an uneven amount of teams that had entered the Open Division, but Pool A featuring the United States, Italy falling second in that pool with 5 wins and only a single loss to the US, but Belgium in Pool B they have been somebody that have been so exciting. A lot of younger players, as you mentioned earlier on, but coming up with 7 wins, unexpected to the rest of the world, but for the rest of the European teams, that is not a surprise to any of us.
And with that 7-0 record, the team that probably pushed them the closest, I mean, you got to give a shout to the Aussies. It took Universe Point yesterday evening for the Belgians to dispatch the Thunder from down under as they almost steal through and get an early block. So let's see how the Americans can show out everything they've done in the sport that they created in the land of the free, as they're here in the old empire today, hoping to extend their reign. Cable pops the disc back rather comfortably to Brown, and they are off to the races. He has the shot. He decides to turn it down as that Australian defense, which we knew coming into this, is going to look to switch, going to look to pass off duties. Cable is just moving all about the pitch. That is a grown man, and he is going to help America grow into this game, stabilizing their offensive approach. Brown spreads it across and collected by Nissen, and pop in for the score to Cable again.
How clean and concise the US are on their throws is honestly, it's the biggest separator for the USA compared to some other teams across the division. They just know exactly how to weight every single disc and where to put it, as we see that break side shot that looks so casual for a break throw.
You want to talk about casual? Ryan Cable already sitting down after getting that quick score. So the Americans just demonstrating fundamentals in full effect, and that's such a crucial part of how they approach this game and the limited amount of time that they have. You can see, you want to talk about scouting. The Americans are famous for being the best at scouting, but taking it to a brand new level with the binoculars busting out so they can make sure they know who the Aussies are bringing. And that's about that matchup approach to defense again. Gigi. The Americans will be looking to target specific players on the Aussie side. They look at the stat sheets. They go to the games of their opponents beforehand. They don't take anything for granted, with such a big part of why they've been so successful over the years.
Yeah, they were quite secretive to us, not really wanting to reveal too many tactics, but yeah, as you mentioned, they're wanting to shut down the Australians' biggest stalwart players.
So that's Loughlin and Moss immediately drawing a double team, as the Aussies are going to have to work very, very hard to get any kind of separation. Loughlin gives it back to Keys, and Keys, one of those players that the Americans will certainly be trying to key in on. John O'Keys. A quick cut downfield, trying to separate it, but they're not really getting much going on in the downfield of the disc. Instead, just recycling it, keeping it largely lateral with the handlers. As you can see, the defensive pressure has been stepping off until it tries to step up, and now a huge throw that at no point looked like it was going to stay in bounds.
I want to almost argue that that was defensive pressure on the catch, but it was delayed pressure on the throw as well. You've got a flying bid from a body such as Turner's, and then you have to pick up the disc and throw it again. You're almost rattling from the catch initially.
So Adam Miller. And here come the Americans, lightning quick again. That's Miller working in quick succession with Chang. And it's back to Miller and then back to Chang. Itai Chang thinks about the break, and the Americans so relentless in how they attack that break side. And then Miller to Chang again. It's just give, go, get, and get out of here. 2-0.
Cool, calm, and collected. This US Opens team just wants to play in absolute style.
And Itai Chang, not one of the succession of imposing physical presences that the Americans bring on there, standing at 5'8", but just so crucial to their movement around the pitch, as we see again that massive bid by Turner Allen. And on the replay, I see what you mean by kind of almost that delayed impact that he had to make that bid and then to be able to get up and still throw off the release from Oliver Loughlin. I think part of that is also just the reputation. Talking to Kyle O, the Australian coach, before the game, he said, look, the thing that we just keep trying to keep in mind is they're just other blokes in shirts. And that's, something you can say from the sideline. But then you got to see just what kind of blokes are filling those shirts standing opposite you on the pitch.
Yeah, we talk so much about, obviously, how much of a physical sport Frisbee is, and really any sports that comes into play.
Apart from
But
golf.
you have to consider the mental aspects. At least from my perspective, it's 50-50. Like, you can train as much as you want in the gym, you can throw as much as you want, you can run as many drills, you can go to as many trainings, but until you fully understand, encapsulate, and accept the mental aspects that are involved in this sport, but any sport really, regardless, you're not going to be successful on any capacity. But that is certainly something, a factor that all of these athletes have taken under their wing, as it's brought them to the quarterfinals of a World Championships.
Let's see if they can take them any further. Keys, a main man and someone the Americans have targeted. Right now he's attracting the attention of Tristan Yarter. Again, just stepping off ever so slightly into those lanes. They do not want to give the Australians that kind of confidence, like you were talking about when you're trying to get that experience. Something that really helps is if your first few experiences are positive. And there's this Scuba scooping it past the defense. And that was the first time they gained some real significant yards downfield. And a nice move by Keys. But again, no one looking for the continuation. Nothing coming too soon, but nothing coming too late either. As Calder gets it and then sends it back across to Young. Young's able to get the dump back to No. There's a nice peel across, and there the pressure from the defense. Scott Heyman able to dissuade the outstretched fingers of Fraser Wigney from bringing that in.
Wigney having to jump early, causing the misread of that disc.
So Pignon gets a break right into the middle and just about able to pull it off. But there's so much security on the receiver side of it. And then a huge gain, and that's the exact kind of gain that the Americans doing a great job of stopping the Australians as they continue to just run through them. A hot knife through butter right now. It's as if those yellow shirts are melting away in front of the cool, powerful American offense. They're already down in front of the end zone. Caniaris, the pop turned down initially as they continue to scout, waiting for something to just be a little bit easier for them perhaps. And there it is, to the front corner and collected for the score by Scott Heyman.
I'm going to be recycling a lot of these terms of being quote unquote cool, calm, collected, but that is their brand. The USA almost have this brand of just being so chill when it comes to being on offense. They've really embodied that aesthetic, and that call it a lifestyle almost with Frisbee. It's so chill. They really take their time with it. But Australia, I have to give credit to their end zone defense. The switches that they had some fantastic defensive switching as they got closer to the end zone. We just see that disc gone slightly awry from Keys. And the US just quick dishes into the end zone, giving them another point. They are now up 3-0, 2 breaks ahead.
Welcome back to quarter-final action here at the sports grounds of the University of Nottingham. The World Under-24 Championships. America are currently 3 points to the good, coming out in this game in that imposing, unshakable style that is synonymous with those deep blue jerseys. One hold, flawless, 14 passes, 2 defensive breaks. Again, once they get the disc, they don't give it back to you. 7 passes, 11 passes. And so far, nothing all that spectacular. Okay, we had one pretty impressive bid by Turner Allen, but he didn't get the disc from it. And outside of that, it's just been putting the fundamentals to full effect. So let's see if Australia can get back to what it is that made them great, that brought them this place in the quarterfinal and has booked them this shot on field 1 against the world champions. So it's back in the hands of Noel. Noel sends it down the line and collected by Walker. Walker into the middle, and waiting there for it was Loughnane. Maybe a pick call downfield. A little bit better, a little bit more movement in the middle of the pitch, able to gain some yards on some of these undercuts.
Yeah, they're providing a lot more space, and again, this initiation cut from the front of stack, we're seeing this offensive style coming up more often and more ubiquitously in the Frisbee community, and honestly, I'm a big fan of it rather than the back of stack cut. It takes a much longer time. Obviously, you got more distance to cover to initiate from the back of stack rather than the front.
Now that's the kind of under gain that they really needed. That's the kind of gain that gets you a bit of confidence. Dungy's there, and he throws it back to Noel. Noel with the inside break. The inside breaks that we know they want to target after our conversation with the coach. This is better from Australia. Starting to show a bit of confidence, taking on some difficult throws, making some hard runs, trying to pull apart the poaches of America. Loughnane, front of the end zone. Now this is where your red zone, this is about as hard as red zone offense as they've ever faced in their lives. Can they be equal to it? It all remains to be seen. Noel floats it back into the middle, collected by Loughnane. So he's gained about 2 yards from when he last got it in the middle of the pitch. But the Aussies not forcing anything yet, taking their time, and another break. Very nicely done. Lucian Noel sends it back to Loughnane. Again, inching forward. Incremental gains, but you've got to take into account how much confidence each successful completion builds. And there's the scuba into the dirt. Perhaps a little bit too confident.
Yeah, the USA defense wasn't applying much aggressive pressure, but it was the casual step back a couple meters on the forced pressure that just allows for them to move laterally and cause those throwing mistakes that we saw just there.
So Buckholz with the big arcing break, just eating up space and allowing them to shoot it right back into the middle. Allen. And as we make our way through these lists, Farah with the disc for the second time on this point. That's the first time Chang has touched it, but that's almost every American by my counting. Buckholz, and it just shows how well balanced they are, how well they work together, and how easy they make it look. Sometimes collected by Adam Miller, and 4-0.
Safety in the clap catch, but having to rise really quite high to ensure that he held on to that. Impressive wrist mobility, has to be said. But that's the US now with their 4th break in a row. As we just see that scuba quite low on the throw, having to make Keys bid. And this break around the back really opening up the pitch, giving the US so much space to work with.
It was all about that break around the back, and then Calvin Staunton, he just got to make a throw that almost anybody in the world could make, that backhand straight, uncontested. So again, they're setting each other up for such success and making it look so easy, when in fact it is the result of a lot of hard work and maybe a little bit of doggedness in the form of Adam Miller, who wants to send a big shout out to everyone from the amazing city of Atlanta, where he calls home, as in where he's from, currently residing in Athens. And again, that American excellence, almost obnoxious at times, but obnoxiousness is something that the Australians do so well, getting in your face, getting you off your game. And right now they're just being served a spoonful of their own medicine, and they're searching for just a little bit of sugar so it could go down sweeter.
It's something that a general attitude that I really dislike in the Frisbee community is the general dislike towards the US just because they win. I don't think that that's the approach that we should be going for. Yes, root for the underdog, but don't actively boo for a team that wins. That's not what we do this sport for.
I hear you, and I disagree wholeheartedly, because I'm a hater. As Australia looking to find a little bit of that passion. It all comes from the same part of the heart, really, those things that make it burn. And Australia is so known for their passion, so known for their heat. searching for something that can give them a little bit of firepower against the Americans. Loughnane gets it to Prosser. Prosser tries to send it back to Loughnane. And Loughnane looks, for the most part, unperturbed, dishing it out for his teammates, and there's a big shot deep. It's going to be a battle underneath it, but it's so well weighted. They can be chased down for the score by Luke Blesser.
Blesser having to go to knees. Immense pressure on the back shoulder, but not a problem. You can hear the cheers around this mini stadium here in Nottingham. Australia with their first point on the board. That shot sits beautifully. A double knee slide.
All he was focused on right there was proprioception. Where are his hands? And can he make sure they wrap around the edge of a disc and get a point on the board for the Australians? So 4-1, and the Aussies stop the bleeding, courtesy of Luke Blesser. Plays his ultimate with Chile Ultimate Club, as well as being a 2023 Australian National Championship winner with Ellipsis. This is his first time playing with the Australian national team and scoring a vital point for them, as this game was starting to slide slowly out of view as the Australians got bashed to a pulp. But they're showing they've got a bit more mettle to them.
Yeah, Australia haven't had an easy ride so far in the tournament. They've had 4 losses, a universe point loss against the Netherlands very early on, playing against Canada, Japan and Belgium as well. All really tight games, but Australia coming out on the other side of it, but also taking down Ireland, New Zealand and the People's Republic of China.
As Brown with the disc in hand, the Americans, perhaps cruising is too harsh of a word, but have won every game and have been able to spread their lines around. It's a big focus for them, is to make sure that everybody gets equal experience, make sure that they can keep the whole team involved, and they've been very successful in that regard. Josh Singleton, disc on the far sideline. Good work by the Australians to shut down these dumps, at least initially, forcing a little bit of a back pedal before Brown resets it up the line to Dameron. Dameron, of course, someone we were talking about before the game, and such an incredibly talented player, but on this team, happy to play a cog in the machine when it's a machine that's this effective. They get it to Cable. Scored the first O-line point of the match. It's going to be a quick pick called. So Cable pops it over the top. The face marking, not effective in this instance, as they just go and shoot for the end zone one more time. That is fantastic stuff. Landsman finding Smith.
And not as easy for the US to generate a quick and simple score. Australia, as you mentioned, applying a lot of pressure around the dump space. And again, utilizing those quick switches, having to take over from their previous defender on the person cutting up the line. But it's so difficult to shut down any sort of defense when you've got such clean throws. So get another look at that quick pass up the line, the switch on the mark, just a step too far.
And they come at you so quickly. You can see the face mark. And just watch this move from Landsman. The stutter stop to cut change direction. I've seen the amount of people go up the line and do a little stutter step and then continue going up the line. The key difference between what he did and what I've seen a bunch of other people get their teams into trouble with is he stutter stops and then changes direction to cut off the defender, catch it, and immediately he's looking to return it, that time to the uprushing Rutledge Smith. As we look at an incredibly proud father, that is Landsman Senior. A lot of American parents making the trip over to cheer on their children, and their kids giving them plenty to cheer about. So here come Australia, hoping to maybe raise the spirits down under themselves. Centering it back. That's a good swing into the middle and running onto it. Prendergast keeping the good times going across. there again, the Americans start to close the door, start to stamp down on some of the key Australian figures, and that's a nice break again. Prendergast showing up with some tidy throws of his own. And looking to run the show right now for the Aussies. Goes with a big arcing one. Two players peeling off. It's going to be a battle underneath, and it's an incredible grab by Kobe Ryan.
You bracketed pressure for Ryan, two American defenders, and you can see why the US wanted to target Keys as somebody to completely shut down. On the mark, the force had stepped back, given a big buffer, trying to be as wide as possible, cover as much space as they could to prevent any sort of deep shot. But when you're skilled of a thrower as you are as John O'Keefe, you can get anything off, unfortunately, for the US. But another score for Australia.
I think if you are the US, that's a particular goal you're not too mad about giving up. Double coverage. You lose it to Kobe Ryan. Allen and Chang both in the region as Ryan struts his stuff. It just shows some of that Australian spirit, trying to keep their motives high, keep those players engaged. A clean hold for the Aussies. We know they like that big bomb deep, and we know it's going to be on. The conditions right now, not too bad at all. So here comes the big pull as Australia are going to have to try. Oh, well, so it looks like it's going to be just a straight offside call. Although a largely ineffectual one, as the disc lands out of bounds anyway.
That was a massive pull. My word.
I think that's the second pull we've seen go out the back end zone today, or in this game. So the Australians get a chance to set up, and we know they want to poach off. We know they want to try and switch, try and play heads up. We know the Americans have got the throws to take advantage of it, but maybe a little bit of lackadaisical catching on the other end. So a turn.
That is extremely unlike the US. Just a simple little mistake.
So now
something we won't see too often.
Walking over to the disc, Oliver Loughlin. Flanked to one side by Moss. And they're going to need some moves. There's the deep cut almost immediately, and a nice under in return to give a few options. Wicks has Moss, finds him. There's some undercutting, but with an American right on your shoulder, it's an intimidating prospect. Goes to Loughlin. Loughlin just about scoops that one around. Lucian Noel has been running tirelessly all point, trying to shimmy, shake, escape those American interests. Arcs that one off. Moss takes his time chasing it down and catching it here on the near sideline. Cycling it into the middle there or thereabouts to Josh Phillips. You make sure on the second grass. Back to Moss. Moss down the line, and again that's Noel. Noel, they're still just taking these arcing passes. Phillips not gaining too much yards, and almost stepping off Landsman, trying to get a block. Loughlin was able to grab it, gets it to Moss, and there's the blade over the intended receiver, and almost on the other side of it was Phillip.
Not enough touch on that throw. Way too much blade, if anything. Possibly tipped on the force, actually. It did look like it came out of the thrower's hands relatively well, but US defender could have gotten a little bit of a touch on it.
As we see a bit of a side stack. The US looking to set up an isolation cut. Well, they center it into the middle, and then they're just doing a straight 2-5. High release backhand. You know the Aussies are going to raise their voice, hoping for that Callahan. Asking Moss, can he find that extra 5% of speed? As here come the Americans. Felix Moran sends it down the line, taken in by McKnight, and McKnight launches one. Tracked all the way and comfortably taken in the end by Landsman. It's going to be a travel called. And then going for the quick pop and the short return. Landsman and Leo Gordon connect for the score.
Making quick work of that turnover.
I would describe that as nonplussed. It's like, all right, fine, yeah, just give it back to me, and just immediately pops and goes. He recognized they had the 2-on-1 advantage.
There's a lot of pressure after the deep shot for the US, a lot of pressure on the actual reception on the throw. A few turns in this point. This is the most amount of turns we've seen so far. So we get another look at that. Did float a wee bit too much, but that quick pop in the end zone. The landsman does get the score. Landsman originally from Altadena, but currently living in Boulder. His parents that we saw on the stream earlier on, they met playing Frisbee.
Oh wow, so a little bit of a second generation Frisbee player, which again just speaks to the talent and the legacy of this American side. It just runs through all of their ranks. As well as that, there's also the legacy that exists through having a similar coaching structure for a few cycles in a row. So while the consistency can't really be built with the player base, and in fact it is doubled when you have the 4-year break like we have experienced, they do carry over that legacy and that consistency through their coaching and through their approach to this. And it's been a very successful run, so they must be onto something, as the Australians looking to find a little something of their own through a side stack and isolation play. It winds up in the hands of Callum Faulkner. Callum Faulkner armed with some layout gloves to give him a little extra security as he's trying to work with his team. That one was always going to be tough to hug the sideline, and Calder drops it.
That was almost symmetrical to the US turnover that we saw in the previous point.
I think give a little bit more grace to Calder. So he's trying to toe that one in. Coniaris sends it to the near sideline. And again, the Americans yarder this time, but so quick to just get that swing back in and look to keep it going. And he nearly forces his defender to do the splits. Big layout! Massive defensive play. Fantastic stuff by the Australian. Calder was able to get the block, showing you can't take your chances with these Aussies. You can't just take it easy. You've got to keep working, because they won't stop. Feng looks to get the dump back into the middle and is able to in the form of John O'Keys. Keys gets it back across and collected by Prendergast. Prendergast and Keys. Keys again. And he's going to be taking on some of the most imposing American assignments available. And there's Calder shooting for the back corner and scoring. Fantastic towing of the line. Callum Faulkner brings it in.
The skidding toe in the back of the end zone. My word, that was some phenomenal offense. The Australian offense was put under so much pressure because the US were poaching in the lane. They knew that as soon as they were getting closer, further down the pitch, they were trying to prevent anything coming through from Jonah. There's that layout bid from Calder again. Incredible body awareness not to just completely deck his offender. And returning with a fantastic throw of his own.
Really great awareness as well from Faulkner. As you can see, he recognizes the curve is coming. He's got to try and do something. Lets it go over his head. And then planting that foot and reaching out to make sure he stays in bounds.
Not a fan of a dab spike myself.
Well, whatever it takes right now to raise the spirits. They were facing a 7-2 deficit, and thanks to some fantastic play by Matthew Calder, now it's 6-3. It's a much more manageable scoreline as they look to continue to put pressure on the nigh unshakable American outfit. Bring back out their offense and going with a split stack this time. It's the Aussies trying to occupy some of that space, switching things up with a bit of a zone. And it's immediately bladed over. McKnight opts to throw it back to Smith. And then they revert into a 2-5 nice and quickly. So Americans just showing off that versatility. Those fundamentals in full display again. Smith with the break around. He's looking for it and he finds McKnight. With the Blady backhand over the top himself. And there's the inside. They attack that break side relentlessly. And there's going to be a foul called. Cable calling that foul on French. And a quick pop back to McKnight. And Cable immediately just pops and then goes to the break side before somebody else just immediately attacks the break side. I mean, this time it's Benjamin Dameron, but like, it's just never ending. It's got to be exhausting.
Just easy does it, really. The US are so strong on this break side. They're just able to plant themselves down, break pretty much any force, and you can see the cuts are being generated for both sides to allow that. And it's so slick. And it's also just ridiculously hard to mark out. You're going to have to be the best force in the world to be able to shut anything like that down. It's the quick, you've got the forehand fake in and then the quick change of the hip step to get that backhand release out without even having to change your pivot. It's ridiculously dangerous.
Some of those, like one of those backhands came out blady, and it's still perfect. They've got so much snap and rotation, and that comes from growing up playing Frisbee for a lot of them. Their technical skills, positively elite. So you get another look at some of the fan club on the sideline. Always wonderful to have people here cheering you on, no matter how far from home.
I was just looking through some of our stats. We've got some surveys that have come through from the players, because I saw the matchup between the number 25 of the US, Cable, and James French from Australia, and I thought they both look ridiculously tall, but they're about the same height. They're both over 6'6". That is insane height that we have for both teams here.
And matching it with disc skills, it almost seems unfair at times as the Australians looking to get one more on the board and trying to find some kind of gap against this always oppressive American match defense. Trading it. The call goes up for no around. It's going to take a break. Those are the hard throws that they have to take on. Faulkner was ready for it. He's already scored once, hoping to add to it. Prendergast gets that down to Keys. And there's going to be a pick called further down the field.
Yeah, you mentioned the no around. Just watching the forces as they set up, they are really overemphasizing the no around. They're standing pretty much perpendicular to their mark to completely shut down that around option. They're allowing the open side instead.
I think the idea being that you trust the handler mark to stop the open side upline cut, and that way you can really maximize, almost creating a pincer or a clamp between the force and the person marking the dump. I'm a big fan of that defense, but it takes a lot of skill and even more athleticism to pull off effectively, especially against the likes of John O'Keefe. There's the pop to the front corner. Nothing comes up. The stall count's getting higher, and there's a nice little dish gobbled up greedily by Tiernan Summers.
That was a backhand that you can just hope and pray is going to be caught, and thankfully it was. Tiernan Summers with the heads up reception. You kind of think that that's definitely something that's possibly happened a fair few times in practice.
To some people it might be a bit of a desperation, but John O'Keefe is so composed. He's already looking at Summers there. Summers tried to get that first run to the front corner, and immediately, almost like a 7 cut, he was looking for the break. That's great intuition and understanding between those two players. He never stopped trying to get himself free for Keys. And as Keys turned back around, he's like, this is going to have to be just a scoop backhand. He sees that familiar form of Tiernan Summers and hits him to make it 7-4.
Keys, an elite athlete program coordinator at the University of Wollongong. Been playing for 7 years.
And showing that depth of experience all over the world. Oh, he was also on the World Games squad, and he's passionate about the development of ultimate back in Wollongong. Wollongong, of course, Wollongong Cronk, the team. They actually went to WUC last year. A lovely group of people who gave me a little kangaroo that still sits on the back of my WUC hat. So right now the Americans looking to bring an end to this half. And that's just a fantastic sit-down flick across. And waiting for it, Staunton. Sorry, not Staunton. Brown. Brown into the middle. And along. And again, just hard running, getting these big unders. Cable collects. Sends it down the line. Every move the Americans make, you have to respect it as they look all the way down the field. And Calvin Brown gets up, making it look stylish for the score.
The cut that Brown had set up in the run-up to that goal was incredible. So Australia are trying to force a lot of their marks under to prevent the deep space from really being open and available. But Calvin had moved his mark on the under, given that fake, as we see here. Cut under, jinks away, wide open, and then in for the score.
And they take half 8-4. So after storming out to a 4-0 lead, the Australians have found their feet a little bit and been able to trade it back to 8-4. Will they be able to take another step forward and get this lead and start to claw that lead back? Remains to be seen.
For the first time ever, from the golden sandy blankets of Portimao, Portugal, Ula and Ulti-TV bring you the World Beach Ultimate Club Championship 2024. The best club teams in the world will converge on the Portuguese Algarve. With expectations for upwards of 150 teams, this promises to be a tournament worth bucket listing. Whether on the sands or watching the action from your screen, WBUCC 2024 is a tournament not to be missed.
I will arise and go soon to the Isle of Emerald Green, and watch my mighty heroes go to battle on the screen. Where the ocean kisses Ireland, Shannon's tears of joy flow. That lovely Lady Limerick invites us to the show. From mighty glens and rugged hills, bays and braes raise a sláinte. Ganairi an bóthar leat, agus céad míle fáilte.
Welcome back, everybody, to the quarterfinals of the World Under-24 Ultimate Championships. And we would like to welcome the head coach of Australia, Kyle O, to our stream. Kyle, thank you very much for joining us. My first question is, obviously the Americans stormed out to a 4-0 lead. But what were you saying to your team that was able to get them to settle into this game and start trading for the second part of that half?
Yeah, they're playing a bit of a forced middle against us, so just encouraging them to use the width of the field, keep attacking that mark and sort of flexing the stack so we can make that space available. Just reminding them that it's easier to do. We can get open, we can make the throws, and they sort of back themselves in a little bit more. And we're seeing that they're starting to link up a few more passes, which is really nice.
So the US have been trying to shut down some of your key offensive players, particularly the ones that are on the disc a lot more often. Have you had to make any adjustments towards that?
Not really, just reminding them to continue to look for flow first. I think we're still doing a great job at getting open. They're pretty tough to mark, so good luck to them.
Always that Aussie confidence. Now, you're going to need to start to steal a couple of points back from them as well. So do you have a plan to adjust your defense to try and dislodge the disc a couple more times?
Yeah, we'll keep running down in a few little junky looks and transitions. I think we're best to play match against them, and just making sure that we're really tight, proactive, and getting that help player when we can, but making sure we're not going hunting too often, otherwise they'll just pick it apart. So plan is to throw down a bit more junk, see what we can do, and yeah, hopefully take it from them.
Well, you might as well throw everything and the kitchen sink at them. It's the quarterfinal of Worlds. Thank you very much for joining us, Kyle, and
no
best of luck to the rest of your team.
Beautiful, cheers, thank you.
So now we are going to have a quick look here. You can see there the Americans with 4 clean holds, 3 breaks, just clinical.
And Australia have also got 3 clean holds to their name as well. It's definitely something to consider, but again, it's the fact that the US have just been able to get in those clutch breaks under their belt, giving that early bit of separation here in the first half.
So we will see how the Australians, you've got to take your opportunities when they come, because so few of them will come. The Aussies rely quite a lot on how they bring that defensive pressure in the matchups, in that one-to-one defense, and we will see how they can continue to do so and improve upon it in the second half.
Katrina Allen! Maria Oliva! She's done it. Kristen Tatar. Side. Ananda. Stacy Delavia. Champion Open at Austin. Paige Pierce.
Welcome back as we join in with that American huddle. They're raising their voices, raising their spirits, and raising the temperature on an Australian side who have battled their way to be in this position. But we're having a quick look at some of the other battles that are going on. Gigi, can you talk us through what's happening in the other quarterfinal on field 2?
Yeah, so Canada are currently up 7-6. Sorry, Germany are currently up 7-6 against Canada. Germany have gone on a little bit of a roll. They've just taken half, 8-6, as I'm hearing in my ears. That will be 3 breaks in a row for Germany. Super exciting stuff. The last time we were at Under-24s in Heidelberg, Canada were the silver medalists. So Germany are fired for this quarterfinal. They want to kick Canada out of the semis.
The lowest seeded team to make the quarterfinals. Your countrymen right now doing Germany proud and not at all flapped by the imposing presence of that Canadian reputation. Can the Australians replicate that focus, that desire, that hunger? And yeah, they're going to need to get a little bit lucky too. But it's all still to play for. 8-4 right now. The Aussies receiving. They started the game on defense. They're going to start the second half on offense. And America lining up those matchups. There's very little wind, so you can expect a full retinue of throws from the Aussies. Prendergast gets it to Keys. Back to Prendergast. And again, the Americans just poaching into that lane, trying to shut down those downfield options. There's that man Calder. He had a brilliant layout to rescue possession back and a shot to the end zone. A real galvanizing moment for the Australian team in a lot of ways. Calder centers it back into the middle to Wigney. Wigney goes to Phillips. I think there's a pick downfield. Yep, that explains his separation. So it's going to go back in to Wigney. So Wigney, Phillip tries to make the same cut again, but it's much closer mark. This time it goes to Keys, who goes to ground to keep possession. I thought he was sending that flick, but instead goes back to Prendergast. Prendergast looks for Phillip, finds him. And down the line, this is better from the Australians, starting to use that width. This is what Kylo was talking about, their head coach. And there's the blade over the top, lots of people in the way. The slightest of touches, the biggest of bids, coming up empty. I thought we were going to see a bit more magic from Calder.
Phenomenal effort from Calder, trying to get the second reception.
It was a nice little touch from Francisco Fernandez just to take it away from the intended receiver, who I believe was Luke Prosser. Probably he was aiming for number 3. Luke Prosser with that blade. And here comes the arcing pass around as America wants to turn the screws and turn up the pressure with another break. Getting it back to Fernandez. And down the line nicely to Heyman. Heyman, there's the undercut, overshoots. And almost overshoots about 3 separate players. It winds up in the hands of Keys after it was collected by Loughnan. Loughnan back to Keys. They're always stepping off. Loughnan just burns deep, hoping someone's going to send it. Instead, it goes to Prendergast. Prendergast back to Keys, and the Aussies are all the way back on their end zone line now. Prendergast. Prosser takes off. Calder comes under, and Keys goes up the line, and absolutely none of them are free. Keys forced to come back and then launch a deep one himself. And this time, really nicely read downfield by Calder, turning Fernandez around. Unable to collect it. So goes to Prendergast. Loughnan burns to the front corner, attracting 2 American defenders. Keys hops, skips, and jumps his way free of the defensive attentions of Coniaris. Now it's with Phillip. He wants Keys again. Maybe it's one of those new American trends and it's going to wind up catching on.
A few turnovers in the start of this second half. The US not looking anywhere near as clean as they have done. There's that. I hesitate to call it an overthrow because I do think that Prosser had miscalculated where the disc was. So it was more of a misread with a combination of a slight overthrow. And Pignon with the wise choice of taking the time out here.
So they're just going to have a quick. That is an imposing line as the USA want to keep pushing and want to be able to bring their lead just another point up. And the Aussies, they had a chance. They got that chance back, which is a rarity enough. So, will they be able to get it off them once again? I just keep thinking back to the fact that the Australian approach is like, stop fighting, stop playing against the reputation and play against the people in front of you.
I mean, it's definitely a good mental attitude to come into really any game with, because particularly if you're a younger player and you're not as experienced with stalwarts such as the US or really any other stalwart that is within your community, it's a different thing. It's a different element that you're having to consider, that mental switch of thinking, my goodness, this person is somebody that I've idolized, or this group of people are like people that I've idolized and watched play Frisbee for so long. I'm now having to play against them. I'm now on the other side that I've seen.
Well, it's a great opportunity that I'm sure all the Aussies are relishing. But then you're in the moment and it can be a little bit intimidating. It's Coniaris. He isn't feeling intimidated from the end zone. The huge shot deep. Lots of bodies underneath it. It's going to be a battle. And Calder able to come up with it. Execution error over a decision-making error. And Calder, between Calder and Keys are probably the 2 least affected Aussies right now. Calder's been having a fantastic time out there. Big blocks, crucial plays. And then Keys obviously at the center with the high release flick over the top to Loughnan. Yes! Let's start the show. Going back to Prendergast. Phillip makes the deep cut. It's enough to pull away that back of stack poach. And Keys eventually takes advantage of it, but not really for any gain of yards by the time he recognizes Wigney's availability. That's better under to Loughnan. To Phillip. And the Aussies starting to find a little bit more space in the middle of the pitch. Keys, the backhand over the top to Loughnan. And Loughnan arcs that one all the way around. Almost seems like Keys is shielding the middle of the pitch, turning his body and allowing those larger swings across to Prendergast. Big layout! But somehow it just winds up in Loughnan's hands anyway. And there's that little bit of luck we were talking about. And a huge shot to absolutely nobody.
Miscommunication off of the cut. Maybe one jink inside the pitch too much.
I really feel for Luke Prosser. He did an awful lot of running and just wasn't able to get that much separation, falling victim to those deadly matchups that the Americans target. And there's another huge shot. This one's much better weighted, and it's just going to be comfortably chased down on the other end. Marvelously done by Scott Heyman.
The layout bid, whilst it was in beautiful form, it was rather ambitious and unnecessary. But the deep cut itself seemed to be set up in quite a strange way. It didn't feel like he was sprinting towards the end zone. He was setting up in a jog, but the person on disc just saw the cut being generated, took it on, belts it deep, and it's extremely successful here. There was that initial throw from Yarter. It went a huge distance. He was pretty much halfway through the end zone, and it got most of the way down the pitch. That miscommunicated shot from Australia, and then answered back with another deep throw into Scott Heyman's hands, giving him 2 goals so far.
And an impressive showing. So on the second attempt, Yarder thought, all right, that first one floated way too much, ever so slightly off. I think I found my range, and then just puts an absolute peach. And again, you respect the effort, but at a certain point, ambition can be its own downfall. So now the Aussies giving up a break, and that's a brave stand and collect from the pull from Noel. As he makes a move back into the middle. And there's the inside break that we know the Australians are capable of. Summers now has it. And just about able to get it to Noel. Noel sends it back into the middle, running onto it and collected by Faulkner. Faulkner down the line to Young. And a quick injury called. That's Nathan Buckles coming off. And this is where we get to talk about the depth of the American side. Player Buckles' calibers comes off.
I have noticed from the Australian offense that Keys seems to have just pulled himself away. He's not trying to initiate as many cuts from the handless. Like I say, this as he's doing so itself, but the first few passes moving down the pitch were not initiated or even moved through him whatsoever, just allowing his teammates to actually get onto the disc and move the defender that is marking Keys himself out of the way.
So that's Keys with the scoop around and towing the lines to stay in bounds. Kobe Ryan, he's already picked up a big score in this game, and that one was almost a bit too behind on Keys, and there's the quick break inside. This is better from the Australians again. They have these moments where they just remember who they are and chain together a couple of passes. Can they do it consistently enough to find? Noel gets it down the line to Summers. Summers thinks about the high break. Noel almost seems to be lining up and inside, but that throw was just a bit too far behind the intended receiver. And here comes America, charging full steam ahead. Chang wanted to send it, decided against it. Bit of contact between Keys and Koo. Letting it go in exchange for just moving the disc as quickly as they can the other direction. Allen goes for the blade over the top. Noel tries to get himself involved and does, seemingly, distracting Kenrick Koo just enough.
That almost bounced off of his wrist. Just get another look at that. Yeah, it hit his forearms. He'd misjudged up in the air as he was going for the disc. It just sliding down his forearm instead of actually into his hand.
So no joy for KJ on that one. And the Australians, the Goannas, as they are known, the under-24 open side. Noel. We know that was one of the players the Americans were targeting coming into this matchup. Gets it down the line to Ryan. Back to Noel. He's got plenty of time and space to find Young. And it doesn't work out for them in the end. An unfortunate drop. And now the Americans have a short field to work with and a chance for another break. Oh, almost getting it to Chang on the first time, but waiting for him to cut to the break side. You know, they don't like throwing to the open side if they can avoid it. Now this is great stuff by Chang, just a quick pop and then the lateral move. So even if he does throw it back, he can regain those yards nice and quickly. And that sets up easy opportunities. Finished by Adam Miller to Turner Allen. 10-4, good buddy.
Yeah, after the turn, the first few passes were hesitated. You could see, like, you could feel their body language. They'd pivot, see the open receiver, but just hold on an extra second and think, there's a defender there. I don't like that. But as you said, got cleaner. The closer they got to the end zone, started moving it a lot faster. And it's that quick catch, immediate release that is game changing.
So looks like the Australians have called another timeout. Understandably so. Seems like the second half starting off the way the first half did. 10-4 down. They're going to recuperate and hopefully find a way to get back to trading. Welcome back to the sports fields here at Nottingham. America 10-4 up and in a commanding position. And if you want to learn how to get into commanding positions yourself, then you can look up the best strategies going on flickulti.com for everything you need when preparing your team. And if you want to strike a commanding position out on the streets when you're walking around, well, then look no further than VC Gear. 25 years producing the top quality apparel for the ultimate community and beyond. Now, is this game beyond the Australians, Gigi?
I don't think it is. They've definitely got more fire in them than they're showing. They've been smooth and clean on a lot of their offensive that we've seen so far. Few errors here and there. And the US is certainly applying a lot of pressure. It's very different from watching on screen to actually being on the pitch itself to feel how intense the pressure is from this USA defense, but it is ridiculous.
Now this is really impressive by the Australians. Noel orchestrating a quick move down the line, working well with Wicks to gain huge yardage and find themselves in the red zone already. Kind of backing out of it ever so slightly, but it's back with Noel. There's the undercut, a straight line cut. Shouldn't really work most of the time, but Cuthbert O'Mara able to make it effective in this instance. Looks to go back to Noel. And Noel hits that front corner one more time for the completion to Noah Moss.
Catches his defender on the back foot, getting the clean open side hold. Australia certainly happy with that now, only within 5. They're within touching distance still. I can feel it.
Much better by the Australian O-line here in this second half. As Noel was able to, like you said, a lot of work to the open side. And again, Noel gets it back. And just that quick step. As I think almost the Americans were expecting, I need to be able to defend this if a swing comes as well. The Aussies thought, no, we've resolved ourselves. We're just going to run as hard as we possibly can at the open side, back our athletes. And that seems the best way to get a score on the board. So they stopped the bleeding quicker than they did in the first half.
And that seems to be the attitude that the coaching team for Australia is wanting to embody as much as possible, is do the simple things and the fundamentals as best as you can, and it will go so much further than trying to do anything fancy, complicated, any weird structures or weird cuts. Just blast up the open side when you can, beat your mark to the front corner, and then sometimes you'll get there. In this case, worked wonderfully.
So hard running. When everything else fails, just keep running. As one coach told me, who's the most successful coach who ever trained me, as there's going to be another offside call. And they're going to walk it up to the brick mark. Jacques Nissen. And once again, in classic American fashion, opens it up with a break, and there's a huge shot all the way to the end zone. 2 throws, and sometimes they make it look so easy. Felix Morin with the score.
I'm speechless. It's incredible to have the opportunity to watch such amazing athletes like that. Again, I've spoken about this before, the quick catch and release. It's so impressive just to see the work ethic that they've put into their throwing specifically. Again, such a fundamental aspect of the sport. You'd think that it was something that people would train so much, but it's just, this has been slowed down ever so slightly, I'd imagine, but just like you catch and go. Just, wow, within milliseconds.
Calvin Brown showing absolutely no hesitation. That might be the quickest point we've seen all tournament. Did that take, like, from the moment that they stepped onto the brick mark, Nissen through the break immediately? It's like 3 seconds in total.
I'd say that the offside call maybe slowed it down ever so slightly.
So excluding the offside call, excluding from the, Nissen to Brown to Morin, how long do you think that was? Blink and
5 seconds.
I felt like you were replaying the entire.
I was.
Just counting. Yeah, that feels accurate. Welcome everybody at home.
You just got a snapshot of my brain. Thank you. You're welcome.
I've seen Callahan's take longer than that. As that one drifts out of bounds. 11-5 to the US in this quarterfinal. Australia still fighting hard, playing for pride. It's just so difficult to limit their options. And it's been quite a physical matchup. That's generally how Australia like to do things. But right now, just being a bit out-muscled. They're still showing plenty of heart themselves. Phillip. And there's the head shake up the line cut, and that one might be perfect. Really nicely done. And Oliver Loughnane is able to chase it down, center it into the middle and get it back. So cycling through a few different handler looks. James French is on the sideline. Now it winds up back in the hands of Moss. Moss with the step through backhand break. That was very nicely done to Phillip. Back to Moss. Moss. It was almost an impromptu zipper play by the stack. Talking to each other maybe. Setting up the quick under to the middle of the pitch. Wicks gets it back to Moss. Moss is starting to take on some of those breaks that we know the Aussies are capable of, and we know their coaches are telling them, you have to do it. And there, Phillip showing one of his own. Gets it to Prosser. Prosser back to Moss. Moss spreads it around to Loughnane. The Aussies showing some lateral movement, showing a little bit of expansiveness in this offensive set. They're not just working it all the way down the open side. Loughnane. That one's going to go out. And back into the middle to Chang. So now it's coming in the opposite direction. And another opportunity for an American break. Oh, fantastic grab. Looked like it was far behind Staunton, but he was able to reach back and get it. And floats it back into the middle. Collected by Koo and across. Again, America The Australians are doing a really good job of this kind of style as well, but America just do it effortlessly almost. Quick breaks, great throws, and almost non-stop aggressiveness going both ways across the pitch. Heyman has it again, and all their players can do it. They don't mind whoever winds up cycling back into that end zone space. Miller, back to Heyman. Has Miller, turns him down, has Staunton, and then Miller keeps it going. There's going to be people coming through. But Miller collects and then offers a hand to Wicks.
Yeah, quick handshake, some defensive pressure from Wicks, but no problem whatsoever for the US. And again, we've spoken a lot about how well they play in this. If we just get another look at that fantastic attempt at the toe-in, Loughman just only ever so slightly out of bounds. It was close.
It was very close.
But the USA have, again, a really deep culture for Frisbee. This team really only had one training camp whilst they were in the US. And then they arrived in the UK a week ahead of the tournament. So came to Nottingham and have been training ahead for about a week. So it's not very long that you've got to get used to each other. But it just gives absolute credit to the athletes themselves, the coaching team behind this, and just, I don't know, it's so impressive.
They are quite a force when they are in full flight. The Eagles soaring right now. And again, Miller just kept moving and kept making himself a dangerous presence. You had to respect, you had to try and shut down. Cycling through it. So many players getting touches on the disc, but again, you think you shut him down going one way. You think you've stopped him on that dump. He just resets, just goes right back up the line. It's excellence at the highest level that we've seen at this tournament. Keys takes on the break again to Ryan. Keys and Ryan, two big players that we know America were targeting coming into this. And I wonder if they're aware of Calder, who has been very impressive so far in this matchup. Nice little feat from No. Back into the middle to Young. Young looking for Keys. Gets it to him in the open side. And then No with the quick turnaround. He was available. Keys goes open side and just scooped up by Calder. Lots of pressure from Moran. Calder shoots it down the line. And then back into the middle for Young. And he's trying to find. Almost able to get it to Faulkner, but couldn't quite. Big bid by Faulkner, but not enough. And then America, within 3 passes, are on the end zone line. They attack you so quickly. That fast break offense is absolutely lethal. There's the quick cycle around. Dameron, we were looking at him at the start of the game, and he is looking to the end zone. And Orion Cable for the score in his second of the match.
Now up to 13-5. Big margin here. And the US really are coming away with this. They've found their groove. They're starting to roll with it. And part of what makes them so slick and what makes their offense run so smoothly is that they get their initial cut, and by the time they've already gotten the initial initiation, they have their continuation already moving. It's already on its way. So they've got the person who will have the initiation cut will receive the disc, and then the continuation is already there ready and waiting to catch it immediately, and that's how it keeps the offensive train chugging and moving.
Orion Cable picking up his second goal of the game. But it's not just, it's like that's 2 goals and it's at 13-5 and no assists, no blocks, and it just shows you how well-rounded this American team is, and that's what their coaches are always talking about when they point to the incredible depth that they have at their disposal. How much fun that must be as a coach. The stats fairly spread out. Adam Miller has had a very impressive game for himself, in fairness. But they, like you say, they just keep going so quickly, attacking back with no hesitation. Noel centers it to Loughlin. Loughlin to Bleeser. And a big bid coming through, but Scott Heyman not able to get his hands on anything. The Aussies working it down the field quickly. There's the leading pass out in front, but into the dirt. Summers was chasing it down as quick as he could.
It was a great look and a great option, and the perfect throw. Just slight miscalculation on the release of the disc.
It's always going to be a tight angle. You got to scoop that flick right up into the path of your receiver. And slight little bit of drop of focus that goes through the hands of Gordon. So Australia get it back in the red zone. Wicks spreads it across back to Noel. Takes on a big break to Loughnane. And there's Noel. Very tightly marked by Gordon. Gordon, an impressive defensive presence. Picking up one of the most important assignments against this Australian team. And there's the float around. And it was a drop. Well, that was probably out of bounds too.
Yeah, he was already out of bounds by the time the disc had gotten into his chest, unfortunately.
Albert Yuan doing a great job of shutting down that option. And the US with another chance. Ooh, they're taking some liberties right now. I suppose it is the land of them. Connie Aris. And working out, like the confidence with which they're working out from the back of the end zone, and then they send that up with a float. That's what the Aussies like to see. They want to chase this, and they'll have to spend a lot longer than that doing it if they want to get anywhere near the disc. Yarder. Essentially, Yuan. Influential in the block, back to Yarder. Yarder, hammer over the top, styling and or profiling. Collecting by Fernandez.
It was starting to look scary towards to the initial part of that possession. The US being pushed further into the Australian end zone. Almost Callahan, you could smell it. But that deep shot, again, just opening up the field. It almost soared outside of the pitch, but just some beautiful work. That secondary reception for Pignon. And the throw just so well weighted. The hammer into Fernandez, bringing them within one of taking this game.
And taking a timeout, understandably, to try and compose themselves. It is a huge learning experience to come up against the Americans. It's something I went through too, that baptism of fire. As they are so loaded with talent. So you have another quick look at Adam Miller, who, out of an incredibly talented team, has been putting on a very impressive performance. There was that clap catch securing it that you were talking about earlier on. He's picked himself up 2 goals, 2 assists. But just operating so effectively with those recycling. Again, showing the hand after the bid by Angus Wicks. But so effectively recycling. They get the disc, they give it, they move again. But every move is a threat. If he's going back, it's to get the disc and immediately swing it. If he's going forward, it's because he wants to attack that space in front of you like you insulted his mother. It's incredibly impressive, and there's a legitimacy to every step he takes that sometimes you don't see in other movements. And that would be something that I would really advise a lot of people watching what he does to take on board. How aggressive and how real everything is. He doesn't really fake. He just decides not to continue with a legitimate option. And that means the defender has to work incredibly hard and still probably get beaten because you shut down. Everybody talks about shutting down that first option. That's fine. He's going to keep working until he gets his 5th, his 6th. And by then you're exhausted and you're about 10 yards behind, just being like, you know what, you can just have the goal. Fine.
Yeah, you'll often see that the defense has to make that adjustment, and they'll just let their mark just get to the disc and think, okay, I need to actually consider the next option afterwards and try and shut that down. So I'm going to move my force all the way around as quickly as I can to shut down that secondary option.
Here's a set play by Keys. And he uncorks a massive ripper. Sends it all the way to the end zone, but there's an even bigger American there initially. And the bounce off collected by Leon No. Turner Allen just kind of fine. Thought he had it. Catch your D's.
It's a casual catch as well. Definitely catch your D's. He'll be kicking himself for weeks on that one. The shot from Keys, beautiful. Again, from one side, one end zone line to the other.
And if you are enjoying all of this action, we have got so much more to come, but the only place you're going to be able to see it is ultiworld.com. We've got events, subscriptions, as well as full-time passes for you to pick up and see the remaining quarterfinals in the open division, which will be coming up in the next time slot. We've got both of them. So no matter what your interests are, we'll be showing all of the semi-finals tomorrow on fields 1 and 2, and of course the finals on Saturday. The only place to see the best ultimate action in the world is ultiworld.com. So look into a subscription today and don't miss out on another minute of top quality ultimate. As we are entering the final few minutes of this game, the Australians were able to get a score, only their second of the second half, and stop the 4-point run by the USA, who now bring out their O-line again. Australia looking for what would be their first break of the game. But what a great thing that would be for them to be able to take home. That's a high release flick. So America showing off a little bit there with that one, but it's a legitimate throw. Back into the middle, whatever it takes to get to that break side. They are relentless. As Gordon sends it down the line to Dameron. And Dameron with the inside scoop to the break side. It's just so difficult to stop. Nissen gets it around. And a big bid. McKnight didn't even throw a fake. That was just Prosser assuming what was about to happen. And now Nissan and McKnight working well together until it winds up finished off in the hands of Benjamin Dameron.
You could see that they were already celebrating in the stack, arms in the air, being like, yes! Just knowing and trusting that their teammates were going to collect that score with conviction. And with conviction, the US have played. They have shown absolute class and quality in this quarterfinal as they now ascend into the semi-finals coming up tomorrow.
Really nicely done by Dameron. And again, just another example of how quickly they can reset, how quickly they can return to attacking the break side, swing back into the middle, keep a legitimate option to one side, so all the defense has to stay honest, and then they just go right back to attacking it. McKnight was fantastic in those final few exchanges as well, with those last few passes. So, with the US victory, and almost squaring up for an end of game ritual between the two teams, they just want to show their appreciation for the Australians.
So the US will be playing up against the winner of the other quarterfinal that's currently being played on field 2, so you can catch that action on Ultiworld. Currently Germany are up 13-10.
And that is quite the scintillating upset perhaps on the way. And if you're interested in that action, you just got to get one of those Ultiworld subscriptions. And of course, if you're interested in the action that we've still got coming to you today, Italy versus Japan, a clash of styles that promises to be mouth-watering, and Belgium versus Great Britain. Belgium, probably what a lot of people would have picked as the main contender to take down the US based off the performances so far, going up against the hometown side who've got an awful lot of pride themselves and an awful lot to prove. As we have one last look at how this game broke down. Once again, America, definitive. They invented the sport, and they continue to define it. 7 holds, 6 of them clean, 6 total turnovers. They gave the Aussies 1 break chance.
That is ridiculous, but even Australia, only 14 total turnovers. That's not bad whatsoever. That's still relatively clean. 5 clean holds in total out of the 6 points that they scored.
That's how good you have to be against the Americans. If you're going to score, it's going to have to be nearly flawless, and that is a standard that is incredibly difficult to meet because it's so hard to replicate the incredible standard of Ultimate in America. But we will continue to try, speaking for the rest of the world. So we're going to have a look at somebody who was very much ready for the challenge and brought his own elite standard, Matthew Calder. Big plays on both sides of the disc. Fantastic throws. Tireless energy. You need a couple of people to just take on leadership roles to show that those are just blokes in shirts over there, which is one of the most difficult things to do in international ultimate, is to reduce the Americans to mere mortals. And for now, their unblemished record at the Under-24s continues.
I mean, if it's any consolation, I can imagine it's definitely not. Losing to the US is always extremely difficult, particularly when you have to face up against them in the quarterfinals. Australia came to this tournament in 5th seed, so they can still hold seed. They're not really going to be losing out on much at all.
And it is a learning experience that they will carry forward into the next generations. The Goannas will keep going, growing, and building for the future down under. As for America, they march on. That flag flying proudly. Can anyone break their dominance, Gigi? Well, right now, we see that the Germans are trying to fight off the Canadians. So remember, the only place you can continue to see all of this elite action from some of the brightest young stars in Ultimate today is by getting an Ulti-World subscription. Check it out as soon as you can, and you could even catch the end of that Germany-Canada game. Will anyone be able to catch the Americans going forward? It remains to be seen. We've got the next round of open quarterfinals coming to you in just 40 minutes. So I will see you there. Thank you for joining us. The final score, 15-6 to the power of the USA.